guys. The first session or first lesson for this finance unit is on simple interest. Okay, so there's simple interest and there's also compound interest. We did work on this last year in Foundations 11, but so this is probably going to be pretty much review. But anyways, it's simple interest and compound interest. So today, simple interest, key thing here is that it is paid once at the end of the term. Okay, so simple interest is always being paid once. And the formula is interest is going to equal your principal times your rate times the term. Okay, so this is the formula. So in other words, I equals PRT. Okay, so principal is your initial investment, right? So the amount of money that you put into it. The rate is your interest rate, and this is always written as a decimal. Okay, and the term is the time or the length in time of the investment in years. All right, cool. So let's just jump to the first example here. So we want to calculate how much simple interest you would earn. Let me scroll the formula back here. On a $7,500 CD, if the interest rate paid was 4.9% for 3 years. All right, first thing I want to point out actually is CD. All right, CD stands for Certificate of Deposit. Right. Now, what you may commonly hear is the same thing as a GIC. So guaranteed. Okay, so these two are actually the same thing. The thing with these is that you can't lose money. All right, so you basically what you do is you put your money in, you wait, and you get more money back. So as opposed to like mutual funds and stocks, and those are more kind of like you could possibly lose money for those, but these ones here, you can't lose money. You're guaranteed that the rate of return. All right. So let's work out this first example. We want to calculate the amount of simple interest. Okay, for $7,500 for 4.9 for 3 years. Okay, so look at the formula, I equals PRT. All right, we want to figure out what the interest rate or the interest is. The principal itself was $7,500. The rate 4.9%, but I want to write it as a decimal, so 0.049, and it's for 3 years. Okay, so the time is in 3 years, so I'm going to plug a 3 in there. Okay, so when we multiply these together, that 7,500 times 0.049 times 3. Okay, so we got $1,102.50. Okay, so that is the amount of interest for this investment. Okay. So pretty straightforward, just plug in those three values for P, R, and T, multiply them together, get our answer. Okay, next one. Next question is asking, how many months would it take to earn $550 in simple interest if $7,000 was invested at 6% per year? All right, so if we break this down, the things that they're giving us is the 550, which is your interest. 7,000 is the principal, and 6% is the rate. But again, we'll use it in the formula if you want to write it as a decimal. Okay, so I equals PRT. Interest is 550. Principal is 7,000. The rate was 0.06, and we are solving for t. Okay. So if I want to solve for t, I'm going to multiply the 7,000 with 0.06. All right. And we get 420 t. Okay. So to solve for t, we're going to actually have to divide both sides by the 420. I'm just going to change colors here. So divide both sides by 420. Those cancel. And we get, let's go back to red here. T equals 550 divided by 420. Uh, 1.3 rounded to 1. Okay, now this answer here is in years, right? Now the question itself is asking for how many months. So if I want to convert this to months, 1.31 years, basically what we're going to do is we're going to have to multiply it by 12. Okay, so 1.31 times 12, we get 15.7. It's supposed to be a 7. Months. So let's just round that to 16 months. Okay, so that would be our answer. Okay, so this example here, again, we're just kind of playing around with this I equals PRT formula. However, this time we're solving for t. Okay. Next example. All right, so how much would you have in total at the end of 6 years if you invested $1,000 at a simple interest rate of 3.2%? All right, so this question here is asking for the total. Okay, so the total is going to be basically our $1,000 plus the interest. Okay, this is, so what we do is we're going to find that we're going to find the interest first and then add on. So that's add on to the $1,000, right? And that'll give us the total. Now the total, what you'll see, and it'll show up in the compound interest lesson or section, the next section. The actual letter that we use is A. Okay, so A equals the principal plus interest, and the A stands for accumulated amount. Sorry, I got one of the cheaper pens, so that's not too bad, right? But should get better with more practice. Okay, so anyways, total is your principal plus your interest. Okay, so it makes sense for this here is to figure out what the interest is. Okay, so interest, again, PRT. So our sub it in, the principal was 1,000. The rate is 0.032, and the total there is 6. Term is 6 years. All right. So when we multiply these three together, a little bit more space. 1,000 is 0.032 times 6. All right, so 192. Is our interest, which means our accumulated amount would be 1,000 plus 192. And so that is equal to $1,192. So that's how much the investment will be worth, the total. Okay. All right, so next up, we want to calculate the simple interest rate if an initial investment of 11,000 grew to 18,700 in 12 years. Okay, so we want to figure out what the interest rate is. So again, I equals PRT. So R is what we're trying to find. Put a little arrow there. So therefore, first thing we want to figure out is the interest. Okay, so the interest is how much you make on your investment. So it goes from 11,000 to 18,700. So therefore, the interest is 18,700 minus 11,000, and that is equal to 7,700. So that's the interest. So I'm going to plug that number in there for this I. So 7,700 equals principal of 11,000 times the rate times the nut term, which is 12. Okay, so we're going to solve for R. 7,700 equals, so let's multiply the 11,000 times 12, get 132,000 R. So to solve for R, we're going to divide both sides. I'm just going to change the color here. Divide both sides by 132,000. Okay, so this will cancel with this, and R is going to equal, and I can't do that one in my head, so let's use a calculator. We get 0.058. All right, so the interest rate itself is going to be 5.8%. Okay. Cool. All right, so this one here, 2 steps. We give you the principal, give you the final amount. So first thing we want to do is figure out the interest by subtracting it. Then we can use the formula here and plug in the 7,700 in for I, solve for R. All right. Next example. This will be. Okay, so determine the principal you would have to invest to have $8,000 at the end of 3 years. Right? If you were paid 4.75% simple interest annually. Okay. So let's break this down. Actually, you know what? I'll leave it as purple. Okay, first thing we want to do is we want to find the principal. Okay, so we're determining what P is. You would have to, so how much would you have to invest to get a total of 8,000? So this is not the interest, this is the actually accumulated amount. Okay, the term is 3 years, and the rate here is 4.75%, but as a decimal, 0.0475. Okay, so this one here actually has a little bit of a trick to it. Notice that we actually don't know what the interest is. Okay, so we we can't actually use I equals PRT. But we do know what the accumulated amount is. It's 8,000. Okay, so remember the accumulated amount is your principal plus your interest. Okay. Now the P is what we're trying to find, but again we don't know what the interest is. So what we actually have to do is a little bit of a trick here, and we're going to actually plug in this I equals PRT in here for this I. Okay, so this is PRT. Okay, so all I did there was in the accumulated amount, which is principal plus interest, I subbed in PRT for the I. Okay, so now we actually have P that shows up twice. However, what we're going to do next here is, and this is going back to math 10, I think, is we're going to actually have to factor out, right? So factoring, yes, the P. All right, so if I factor out a P, which is the GCF here, I get, this is a 1, right? P bracket 1 plus RT. Okay, so now what I can do is actually I can sub in some of these values here. Okay, so on the left-hand side here, I got 8,000. Oops. Why is this not right? 8,000. P is what I'm trying to find. 1 plus. Okay, so the rate here is 0.0475. And I'm multiplying it with the term T, which is 3. Okay. So what I'm going to do next, oops. What I'm going to do next here is I'm just this whole bracket here, I'm just going to punch that into a calculator just to get a value. All right, so 1 plus 0.0475 times 3. All right, so I get 1.1425. Okay, so basically what I did there is I plugged in, plugged in this into the calculator. Okay, so again I got 1.1425. Now we can actually solve for, just change the color, solve for P by dividing both sides by that 1.1425. Okay, so this cancels with this, and as a result, P is going to equal, so 8,000 divided by 1.1425, so we have $7,002.19. Okay, so that would have been the initial principal. Okay. Now, the part B of this example asks, calculate the rate of return on the investment. Okay, so what that is saying is that what it's asking. So it went from $7,002.19 and it grew to 8,000. Okay, so to get the rate of return, so this has nothing to do with like how long you invested, it's just how much did it grow by from your initial investment, the principal, to the final amount. So the rate of return to calculate that, you're going to take the 8,000, so how much it is how much it ended up being worth, and dividing it by the initial. Okay. Now when I plug that into the calculator, 8,000 divided by $7,002.19. All right, so I got 1.14. I'm just going to round it to 1.1425. Okay, so I'm going to do my best to explain this. Let me just change this to red here. Okay, so this is what we call the multiplier. My printing is terrible. Just erase that one. Multiplier. Okay, so I had to multiply by 1.1425 to get to 8,000. So the actual return part, kind of get a different color. Let's go green. All right, is this part right here. All right, so this represents 14.25%. So that was the rate of return. Okay, the one part is actually the principal part. Okay, so the one part here represents like 100%, which is like the starting point. Okay, and then we added on 0.1425. So that's the actual rate of return. Actually, you know what? I just thought of a better way to explain that. 1.1425 is the same as 1 plus 0.1425. Okay, so this 1 represents the principal. This 0.1425 represents the interest. So that would be the rate of return, is what you add on to the 100%, and what you add on to the initial investment. All right. Now, that being said, there's an actual quicker way. This is the kind of the way to explain how to get there, but there's actually a lot quicker way to get the actual answer. If I scroll back, remember that the interest rate was 4.75% annually, right? So the annual rate was 4.75%, and it was put in for 3 years. Okay, so I take the 4.75% and I multiply it by 3. I am actually going to get the same number. All right, so 4.75 times 3. Look at that, 14.25. Okay, so that's kind of like the quicker way of getting the answer. However, the reason I showed the first one here is that to actually give you the explanation behind it. Okay, so the rate of return there is 14.25%. Okay, same thing I got over there.